What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and this one I want to talk about what's going on with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers, and break down what's going on with the economic calendar for tomorrow, what the data is suggesting, what you should be looking out for as we approach tomorrow's trading day. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I give you guys my prediction for what could end up playing out for Monday, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed up to 15 free stocks, and this offer ends in just a couple of weeks. Anyways, now let's break down what's going on with the markets. Looking at SPY, I just want to mention that this thing is forming this very, very nice looking range right over here, and we're going to be watching to see how it tries to hold this range going into this week. Now, it is very possible for there to be a pump and dump style move, just like what we saw on Thursday and Friday, as SPY kind of pumped in the morning, then came back down. It happened 2 times in a row. There's a good chance that we could see a continuation of this momentum. We have this range. We're going to be watching this very carefully on Tesla and all these different tickers. I'll be breaking down the range in just a couple of minutes. But for tomorrow, as a reminder, don't forget that at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the consumer inflationary expectations. Then we have the bill auctions coming out at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And besides that, we just have Bostic giving a speech. So all the data is going to be very, very minor for tomorrow. Keep in mind the market is quite greedy right now. We're still at this high level of greed, which suggests that there is more room for the market to come down in the future. I still anticipate downside for the upcoming months. But for the super short term, there could be lots of nuances, lots of differences because of the fact that SPY has already been dropping. So I want to break down more specific details about this. Now, when you look at the 4-hour time frame, SPY is about to get a bullish crossover on the PPO. So it might attempt to push up just a little bit, but the question is, can we try to break above this resistance at 471, which is very close to the 50 EMA? If we could close above that, there's going to be a little bit more upside potential, but we haven't quite done that yet. We're going to be watching to see if this thing kind of pushes and rejects or not. Also on the daily time frame, we're trying to hold above our 20 EMA. We're going to be watching to see if this could hold. We barely closed above that. So watch and see an attempt to push up probably tomorrow, and we'll see if this move fails just like how it did on Thursday and Friday. So once again, guys, as a reminder, we're going to start off with SPY. The daily time frame on SPY is still looking very weak. The 4-hour is showing some signs of this thing attempting to bounce. We're not quite there just yet. So we have a range. We basically have this resistance at 470 and also at 471. This is tight resistance. When we hit this level, we have been getting rejected. And we have very nice support down here around this 466 to 465 area. When we enter this zone, we tend to see buyers step in and defend SPY very nicely. So we're going to be watching this range. Just to be very, very clear, if we lose 465, we're going to turn really bearish. SPY is going to be dropping down to 462. If we break and hold and close above 471, there is potential for this thing to push to fill some imbalances at 472.5 and also get up to 474. So now that you know supply and demand and some important levels, what do I think may pan out? I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see an attempt to push up in the morning, because don't forget that the 4-hour is showing a potential crossover that's coming. It's gaining some momentum on the 4-hour. We have this resistance coming out of 469.6 and also 471 at the 50 EMA. So I think SPY is going to try to push up when we open, but watch resistance around this 470 to 471 area. It might just reject again, just remain in this range and come back down. I don't know if it's going to come all the way back down to where this wick is down here and then come back up, but I think that it's going to remain in this range, and I think we're going to see kind of like a pump when we open, kind of failed attempt one more time, and it might just continue to remain in this trend. I think that's very probable for now. But in order for us to turn bullish, make sure you remember that we have to try to close above at least 471 for there to be more hope for the bulls. And if we end up, breaking below 465, we're going to turn really bearish. So otherwise, we're still stuck in the range. And I think we're likely going to continue to do so. Now, what about for Tesla? What do I see for Tesla stock? I see something very similar. Tesla's very boring right now, if I'm going to be frank with you. It's been basically stuck between supply and demand, going back and forth and back and forth. We have resistance at 240, also at 242 and 244. We have support at 238, and also we have support at 236, and we have 234 below that. I also want to mention that when it comes to Tesla, if you look at, the daily time frame, right? On the daily, so on the 4-hour, it's actually trying to get across around the PPO, showing some life, but it hasn't gotten a strong close yet. But going back to the daily chart, it's looking a lot better because On the daily, we have a decent support at 234. We need to see if Tesla could hold the 200 EMA. If we lose that, we turn really bearish. And if we end up breaking above our 50 EMA at 242, we could turn a bit more bullish. So what do I see for Tesla? Break 242-ish. This thing could start pushing up higher. We're going to be looking for a target of 245 plus. If we fail to break it, just like how we attempted on Thursday, we tried, we failed. If we fail to do so and we end up losing this critical support right here at 234, if we lose that, expect Tesla to start sinking back down towards 230. So watch those levels very carefully. 234 is critical support. If we lose that, we're bearish. Watch 240 to 242 as resistance. If we get above 242, we could turn bullish. Those are some very important levels. Now, what do I think is going to happen with Tesla? Well, the thing is, we have some strong support at the daily 200 EMA, and so far we're trying to hold it. I think Tesla's going to attempt to push up when we open, because if you look at what happened on Wednesday, we opened, we pushed up for a couple hours and came back down. If you look at Thursday, we pushed up for a few hours and came back down. Look at Friday, we pushed up for a few hours, then we came back down. So we're going to likely see an attempt to push up to 240, maybe even 242 on Tesla. I think it's going to try to push up towards this resistance, and we might not be ready to break out just yet. We could see it fail to break 242 and just remain in the range again and get like a somewhat green dividend, maybe a little flat. And then we're going to be watching to see if Tesla could try to close above 242 later on during the week. But I think a pump when we open followed by a dump is the most probable outcome. Make sure you watch the levels just to be safe. I'll be talking about them as well. On the QQQ, I just want to mention that we have a very interesting trend. So in this channel, we have the green trend line acting as resistance. We have our white midline, then we have support at the red trend line simultaneously. If we're bullish on the QQQ, you want to see it basically break out of the green trend line and close above 400. If it achieves that, we could see a nice push to the upside. If we're bearish, you basically want to see this thing lose 393. The reason why 393 is so important for the QQQ is because when you look at the daily time frame, not the daily, so I think it's the 4-hour time frame. I believe that's the most important time frame. The 200 EMA is at 393.25. And then notice how on Friday during the pre-market, we actually touched that and we bounced off 393. So that's going to be our critical support. Now, the 4-hour is showing that the QQQ is going to try to push up. We might see an attempt to try to get back up to at least 399. But we'll have to see if that could break or not. So I do anticipate a push up that's coming. We'll have to see if it could hold or not. That's going to be very important. So you have our levels in mind, right? If we lose 395, watch 393. If we lose that, we turn bearish. If we're bullish, you want to see it basically break 400, and then we have 402 and 404 as resistance. A break above 400 would be bullish. What do I think is going to happen? Well, look at the last couple of days for the triple Q. On Wednesday, we actually started very flat, very sideways day. On Thursday, we pushed up into open for 2 hours, then we came back down. Friday, we pushed into open for about 3 hours, and then we came back down. I think we're going to try to push up because of what the 4-hour is telling us. I think it's going to attempt to try to break this green trend line. Might get a fake breakout. It's going to attempt to test this at least at 397. Could go a little higher, but I think the move will end up failing, and I think we're just going to remain in our range for an extended period of time. So a little pump and dump is likely going to happen, and I think it's going to remain in the range at least for now. And then we're going to be waiting, whether it takes another day or a few days, to see which way we break. I think that's very probable for the triple Q. That's pretty much it for the triple Q, though, when it comes to Nvda. However, Nvda is showing more life, is gaining some relative strength, got a nice inverse head and shoulder structure, nice break out of this channel. I'm going to be watching this blue trend line as resistance. Going into tomorrow, I want to call out something very important about Nvda. Nvda is kind of leading and helping the QQQ push a little bit. So if Nvda keeps going, this is going to help the QQQ quite a bit. The 4-hour is looking a little bullish. It looks like it could try to attempt to go a little higher. And then if you look at the daily time frame on Nvda, nice bounce off the 50 EMA, and we're starting to curl on the daily. It could attempt to get very close to 500, but it does not mean it's going to keep breaking out. Could still reject off that, so you want to be very careful. It is making higher highs and higher lows for now. I think that tomorrow we're going to start to see Nvda attempt to push up to about 495. We might test the blue trend line again. It's 495 area. And we'll see if this could break. If we break this, watch 498 to 500. If it fails, just like how it did on Friday, we'll look for a little pump and then dump and sideways price action. But I do believe there's going to be an attempt to go up higher on Nvda. I think it could be testing this resistance of this blue trend line. This blue trend line right over here is right over here. You guys can see this support right here. We're going to be watching to see if that holds. Make sure you watch these levels very carefully, and we'll just see how it goes from there. We'll look for a little pump on Nvda. It's very likely it's going to attempt to do so. If it fails to do so, make sure you watch 488 as support, which is where we have this critical trend line. If we lose that, our next support is going to be 485 and 482. So watch the levels just to be safe, but it does look like Nvidia might attempt to test this blue trend line based off technicals. So watch that very carefully for tomorrow. As far as Apple goes, Apple, in my opinion, still not looking that great. We're kind of flat on Apple. We're actually range bound, and it's just not looking that great to me because it's very simple. Apple's technical analysis is super, super simple. Let me just show you one little thing about Apple. I have it right here on the daily time frame. We have the 178 200 EMA. On the 4-hour time frame, we have just very flat price action. So it's flat like a pancake. It's flat like Kansas, not really doing much. Basically, on Wednesday, it was just range bound. It gapped down. Thursday came, sideways price action. Friday, sideways price action. What are some levels to watch for? That's really all I could say about Apple. It's just very indecisive, very stuck for now. But here's the important thing. We have resistance at 182 and also 183 flat. We also have some resistance at 183.5. If you want to be bullish, you want to see it break 183.5 and close above that, then it could start pushing up and get very close to 185. For supports, we have two critical supports. We have 180. We'll see if that holds. If it fails to hold 180, our next target is to be around 178, right about here, which is where our 200 EMA happens to be. We're going to be watching to see something very carefully. Does it start to bounce off 178 to 180, at least temporarily for a very, very small little bounce, or does it end up failing? That's going to be our key level. As of right now, there's not really a direction on Apple. It's very stuck between supply and demand. Might continue to go back and forth. I think it's going to pop when we open on Monday, then come back down, just go back and forth in a very boring manner. I think it's going to continue this trend until we finally get a break in one direction. It looked a little bit weak on Friday during the after hours, so look for a little pop and drop, and let's see if 180 holds. If you lose that, 178 is next, so just be a little bit careful. We'll see if we get a pump and dump on Apple. That's it for the main 5 I typically go over. Let me just go over a few others just for fun. Rivian, to me, it's trying to push on the 4-hour time frame. It's going to likely try to kind of cross over right over here. If it breaks the 5 EMA, I could see it get very close to 20 again, then reject. So I think it might backtest the 200 EMA. So a little pop might come through in before it comes back down. So the 200 EMA test is a possibility, but it's still looking weak overall. I don't want to change my view. A little pop could come thanks to the 4-hour, then the drop. I think it might push to 20, then come back down, eventually make its way down to 18. A pop and drop is very probable for Rivian. For SoFi, looking at the daily time frame, I think it might attempt to retest 8.5, then reject and come down to 7.84. So I think it has more downside coming. The 50 EMA could be retested 8.5, and then back down to 7.84. Russell 2000, this is very flat right now, but I want to call out that on the 4-hour time frame, right? This is showing some life. It's trying to base at 189. I could see this drop a little bit lower, retest 189, then bounce. I think that's going to likely happen, and then make its way back up to 195. Unless 190 is where it's going to bounce from. There might be one last liquidity grab down here than a bounce. I'm going to be watching for that on the IWM, Russell 2000. For Microsoft, Microsoft, in my opinion, is trying to base at the 200 EMA. If we lose 367, we close below that, we're going to turn bearish. We could be looking for a move down to 365 or below that. And then watch 370 and 371.58 as resistance. My gut tells me it's just going to be range bound between 367-ish to about 370, going back and forth and back and forth. Very boring for the stock overall. AMD is showing some life. If it breaks above 139, look for a push up towards this imbalance at 144. Now, it's showing life thanks to Nvda, so we'll see if this holds. If you reject off the trend line, if 133 is going to be key support. If we lose that, 129 is coming. But it looks like this is going to try to curl and make its way up to this imbalance. I think 144 is very probable for AMD. So watch that very carefully. This is being heavily impacted by other stocks out there. The dollar is kind of flat right now. It's stuck between supply and demand. We have resistance at 102.8, support around 102.3. So watch it just go back and forth and back and forth. As far as the VIX goes, this is dropping. Watch support around 13.27. Watch resistance around 14.8. We'll just have to see how this holds. Keep in mind there's a gap on the VIX, so we'll see if this thing actually starts breaking down. This could be because of the market bouncing soon. But just to be safe, we'll see if the VIX is forming a double top or not. I'm going to be very patient with this. I'm not going to make the call yet. I have to watch the chart first. For Google, Google to me looks like it has a and it's trying to base, right? I called out 136 last week on Google, and that's where it actually went to. Now we're trying to base at the 200 EMA. We'll see if this holds. If we lose that, the level I was basically eyeing is around 233.5 if we end up losing the 200 EMA. So we're barely at support right now on Google. It is looking kind of weak. We'll see if the 200 EMA holds this red line here. You guys can see this red EMA. We have to hold 137.15. If we hold this, expect it to bounce back up to 139. If we lose this, it's going to break down to at least 133 or so. So it has to hold the support. Watch this carefully going into tomorrow and the next few days. My gut tells me it's going to be range bound for now, and then we'll have to see. Amazon's getting a bullish crossover on the PPO. We could see an attempt to break, at least test 146.5 to about 147. I think we might test this, but I'm not sure if we're going to break it or not. So watch that very carefully. And then as far as Meta goes, we're going to be looking for a little push up. Meta could be testing around this 355 area. I mean, it is possible it tries to push up higher. I could see an attempt to do so, so watch that carefully, and I think that's going to be very important. Anyways, guys, that's it for the video. I want to keep this one very short and simple. So basically, I see the market trying to push up. I think it's going to try to push up tomorrow. But I'm not sure if the move will actually last, because remember, Thursday it tried to push up, it failed. Friday it tried to push up, it failed. So we'll see if we could try to see this thing attempt to do so. It might not be ready yet. I think it's very probable we kind of like push up and kind of fail temporarily. And I think the market's going to likely remain in these ranges for SPY, the QQQ, Tesla, and beyond. But if we break the levels of resistance I called out and we close above them, we could turn back to bullish. We'll just have to see where we close tomorrow just to be safe, to see if there's a trend change. I do think there's a possibility of a bounce coming in the future. I'm just not sure if it's going to start tomorrow because of the fact that we're still range bound, right? It may take, a couple of days to develop, and we'll also have to be waiting for CPI on January 11th. That's going to be very important, so we'll see how that goes. That's going to have a big effect on the market as well. So we'll be watching for all of this very carefully. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you, and peace out.